Okay, we're going to finish chapter 12. This is the second part, and this will be where your forum response is. So, adolescence and family. We know it can be difficult as children transition into adolescence, and there's typically a lot more time spent with peers, and siblings become less close, and parents' relationship kind of becomes not as close. There's more conflict between parents and adolescents, but decreases by mid adolescence. The preferred parenting style is authoritative, not authoritarian. That's different. Authoritative is the one with more balance. They're confident, responsible. Um, they're able to talk things out. They also have good boundaries. There's warmth and compassion and consequences. But authoritarian parents are demanding and rigid. They use harsh punishment and anger. And you need to know this because if you can determine this by listening to your kid that you're seeing, right? Or you're maybe counseling the parent and you find out this is how they are, and you can talk with them about it. Um, so authoritarians do not let adolescents argue or question them. They assume they're always right. They behave like dictators. The relationship is tense. There's little warmth or caring. Adolescents raised by this type of parenting are rebellious and may succumb to peer pressure. They have poor self-esteem and often do not do well in school. And then we have the permissive and the ignoring. Permissive is they give in, they can't stand conflict, they have few rules, they're uninvolved in their adolescent lives. They may display warmth, but they are very low in control. Adolescents with permissive parents are anxious because rules aren't clear and consistent, and they don't know what to expect. Many parents and adolescents want permissive parents, but younger adolescents in particular need structure. So that's the other thing. Adolescents sometimes think they want that, but the research shows that they do crave boundaries, and that makes them feel safer to have clients who have good boundaries. Adolescents of ignoring parents are left to their own devices and receive very little guidance because the parents put their needs first. Adolescents with ignoring parents go to extremes to get parents to pay attention to them, acting out, abusing drugs, failing school, etc. We have next Seltzer's social identity model, and this is talking about a model explaining how the changes that occur during puberty result in anxiety and instability. And I have often talked as I work with adolescents or I work with parents who have adolescents, I talk about how they struggle. They're really struggling between being a child and being an adult. And it's unstable. There's anxiety and instability. It's called frameworklessness, seeking independence and going toward peers, but also it's just really difficult because partly, sometimes they want to go play with toys and then or be a kid and then you see them, oh, I'm big and I'm going to go up and get on my phone or whatever and talk to my friends. So it's just an interesting time. Gravitating toward peers for emotional dependency. Peers are extremely important. They can begin to compare themselves to others and engage in something called attribute substitution. And that means they imitate behaviors and other characteristics that they start to see in others. It reduces anxiety, and now they're modeling how they need to be, which makes sense as to why you might want a decent peer group if you can help it. Shy adolescents might begin to imitate others who are more outgoing, um, express interest in things others are interested in. They're kind of trying things on for fit and experimenting. I'm going to continue to talk about peer relationships here. I just said that, but close, stable friends are really good. There are cliques and crowds. They play a crucial role in experimenting on new behaviors, but it can also be quite alienating for people that don't have that. And there's a difference between crowds and cliques if you didn't know. I didn't, or at least I forgot. Crowds are influential. They can carry labels, such as, oh, I guess it's just a category, kind of like a category like the jocks, the populars, the rookies. Great. The clique is a smaller group, and six to 10 peers, where you adopt the mannerisms of the group and socialize with the members, and that clique is part of a crowd. And you tend to kind of mimic behavior of that clique and then therefore crowd. Peer pressure is really important. It's significant. It can be positive or negative. So again, that's why peer group's important. And those extracurricular activities, etc. If you think about it, it gives your child, your adolescent, more of an outlet. And so perhaps things might be not going well at school, but they're in ballet or they're in art or, diversifying and giving them more stability, or they have things to keep them busy and they have similar interests. If all of you have a similar interest in soccer or football or art or music with this group and you're busy, you have some positive things to talk about and some goals, and that can be a positive influence. But the negative could be very strong with drinking, smoking, stealing. It's very, very strong, this peer pressure. And teens more frequently engage in peer sanctioned behavior voluntarily as opposed to being coerced. See, adolescents did not feel the pressure to conform. They conformed because they wanted to, because this is like survival of the fittest at this point, right? There's some brain changes that occur during adolescence that have effect on the need to be accepted by others. Being accepted leads to, let's see, there's a proliferation and also a pruning of dopamine receptors that leads to reward seeking. There's a link between the reward system and social processing that results in greater interest in peers after puberty. That's really interesting. 279 in the middle. It's kind of cool. All right, romantic relationships. Or we are not almost done. We're at 16. We're going all the way to 27. I bet it's probably more like 25. We got like 10 slides. Hang in there. I'm glad I split this one up. All right, we know that when people start to have the crushes and get into these romantic relationships, um, dating groups at age 13, start having crushes, share a secret with a friend. More serious dating begins at 15, intimate about love around 17. Um, Sexual experimentation does really increase during this period, and teenagers are a lot more likely to be sexually active. So you need to be able to talk about that and be able to talk about risk and talk about, you can't judge, though. This is where it gets dicey sometimes, isn't it? You have a teenager come in and wanted to have sex with her boyfriend. How do you handle that? Oh, there's my forum response. I like that one. Talk about what that's going to be like for you. So let's say you have a 16-year-old girl coming in and she's really excited. She's talking about having sex with her boyfriend. What do you do? I'm just curious to see what you guys say. What do you do as a therapist? What are you going to do? They want to talk to you about it. They want to figure it out and talk it out with you. What's your role in that? There's your forum for 12. We just said increase these risky behaviors. There's so many issues. And then we know depression, conduct disorder, ADHD, anxiety, and bipolar. Um, Again, that egocentrism that we talked about earlier and not understanding there's risk. And the peer group may really um, increase their um, deviant behavior. Um, So you'll want to screen for all these disorders and really look at all these are things you're looking for if you've got the adolescent client. What's going on with them? What are they doing? Do they have an eating disorder? Are they drinking and smoking? Are they having sex? Are they being bullied? Are they considering suicide? Okay. What did I want to read you? There was something important. Okay. Um, Risk factors for substance abuse include individual characteristics like a risk taker, peer factors, who's their peer group, family factors, school and community factors. Individual characteristics include impulsivity, which is risk taking, aggressiveness, anger. Um, those who associate with peers who use substances are more likely to use them. Family factors, really important. Harsh parenting, lack of parental supervision, low emotional support, high levels of conflict, and parental or sibling substance abuse. School failure, unsafe school environment, if they drop out, much higher risk, and can be the community, like the neighborhood and stuff, that can contribute to those issues. And we'll talk more about that in the fall. Delinquency and violence. Juvenile delinquency makes me mad to even talk about this because delinquency is the parent's problem. But here we are here, and we put these poor children in jail, but where they shouldn't be. So maybe one day it won't be like that. Um, this angers me just to read it, but early onset antisocial and late onset antisocial, which is really just trauma, but which occurs after puberty and involves only minor offenses. The reason it is they have that is because of harsh parenting or no parenting or foster care or drug use in the family, the ACEs, the childhood experiences. Um, Most likely come from dysfunctional families, have poor school performance, harmful school conditions, racial discrimination, poverty. All these are the real issues, but we like to label them like they have a problem, and really that's not it at all. They are ill because of what they're trying to get a need met. Nobody's meeting it. How do we help? All the things. Support. They need support. They need counseling. They need good support around them and good camps and maybe church programs if that's appropriate, whatever. Teen violence and gangs. There's a lot of teen violence. There's date rape. I can't tell you how many I hate to even call it date rape, but girls getting raped in high school, college, um, constantly. There's a lot of domestic violence in teens. You don't think about it being an issue sometimes, but it is. And then there's also gang membership. In gang membership substantially increases one's chances of being injured or killed. But I do want us to remember not to stereotype gangs and making sure that we think about the ways that gangs help people survive too. So conversely, I disagree with the textbook. In some ways, I think we've done a real disservice in the way that we've criminalized gang activity instead of trying to understand it. If you want to respond about that in your forum too, you can. You don't have to. And adolescent sexuality. We have talked about this a lot, that this is a big issue. Obviously, this is where sexual exploration happens, fantasy, um, masturbation, etc. Lots of experimentation in sex, play, maybe not even to sex at some points, but just trying different kinds of things. Um, but of course, early sexual activities associated with poor school performance, substance abuse, and other behavior problems. They often don't use contraception regularly. I think they're invincible. Lack of planning. You could have an adolescent pregnancy, or you could have the father of the pregnancy in your office. And so this is just something you need to be open and ready to talk about all of these things and be there for your client and help them to navigate all of this. Um, Even though teen pregnancy rates are declining, the U.S. is among the highest in teen pregnancy and childbearing among developed countries. When we have a child who has a baby, it's tragic for them often because um, they have to drop out, they can't get their degree, a lot of things making them stay in poverty if they weren't already in poverty. Um, so it can be really difficult. Interesting research, 40% of teenagers in America have had sex by the end of their sophomore year in high school. That's almost half. So if you think that these kids aren't coming in to talk to you, you've got another thing coming because that's half of the people that you see, right, for kids, if you think about it. And by 18, two-thirds have had intercourse. So that's three-fourths. I mean, that's a lot of kids. African American youth have their first sexual experience earlier than white usually. And it's because more African American youth grew up in poverty and single parent families, which are risk factors for sexual behavior. Um, and sexually active kids aren't necessarily in romantic relationships, they're having casual sex. They think they're invincible, they're not protecting themselves. There are two, unfortunately, sex ed has been and continues to be a controversial subject. It's terrible. Um, so there are two basic types: abstinence only, which address the social, physiological, and health benefits of abstaining, and a more comprehensive program that attempts to reduce the rate of early sexual activity, but also provides education about contraception and STDs. Those comprehensive sex ed programs do not increase sexual intercourse as critics believe, and they can reduce the risk of adolescent pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases. One factor to keep in mind about sex ed is that adolescents mature at vastly different rates, so it's important to continue to expose the information to them over and over. So it's really interesting. I don't know if you guys are familiar with abstinence only and programs such as that, but I think we have that here in town. And so I wonder what you guys think about that. It would make a very good class discussion, would it not? Um, Unfortunately, like I said, we rank high in pregnancies in the U.S. It's terrible. We're 8 times higher than the Netherlands. Isn't that interesting? The vast majority of pregnant U.S. teens give birth to babies and raised in a single parent, which creates a domino effect. Yeah. STDs also don't protect themselves. Staggering statistic from 2011, so I think it's probably far higher now, is that 1/4 of sexually active adolescents acquire STD. Can be a far better deterrent sometimes for kids. It's important that they are fully aware of all of those, understand how that works and how prevalent it is. Very important to be honest with children about this. Um, AIDS, that's not as prevalent now. But adolescents and adults aged 24 and younger account for nearly half of new AIDS cases. Education is key. Date rape occurs more often if boys see violence modeled in their homes and if girls have low self-esteem and think they deserve to be treated in this manner. 75% of men and 55% of women who were raped have been drinking or given the date rape drug Rufinol. Can't talk. It doesn't matter what has happened. Still not okay. If Anyway, you have to really reduce the shame in those clients. If you see girls who have been or young adults who've been date raped, you have to normalize this for them and make them know, hey, if you're wasted drunk, it's not okay. It's not a pass. Um, they feel so much shame and they feel like it's their fault and they put themselves in that situation and that's bullshit. They did not. They didn't just because they went out and wanted to drink and have fun doesn't give someone the right, and they're kissing someone doesn't give them the right to go ahead and take advantage of them. I'm already teaching my 5-year-old son about no, but not just know the word, but and you can tell someone's uncomfortable or not wanting that kind of touch, even like if he's playing with my daughter, playing with me or something, trying to teach him the cues of when to back off of someone or not, you can tell that this is not, they're not wanting to play right now or whatever. I'm already trying to start to model that in my 5-year-old son so that we'll talk about it as soon as he is developmentally able, we will have conversations about this. So important. Um, Also, just knowing you got to go on the whole, like, this is not okay. This should have never happened to you. With the people that you see. Don't don't flip into the, oh, were you drinking kind of thing. That's so biased and hurtful. So just soapbox again. Sorry. I've had so many of those cases, and actually, if they are awake, they do freeze, fight, flight, freeze, disassociate. They do freeze, and your body will actually freeze, and you're not able to say no. So please, please, please understand that often no one says no because they can't. They're in shock. But there's a huge difference in someone who's into sex and someone who's not. So no one should be pursuing sex if someone is not reciprocating, and that's my whole point. And that they actually freeze. They fight, flight, freeze, body freezes, not able to move or speak in fear for best response. So, okay, sexual identity. So we know that um, boys begin to feel different and become more interested in activities that are not typical for their gender sometimes. Girls start to have maybe feelings toward another female. It's normal for people to question sexuality. Um, Usually involve members of the opposite sex, but 15% question sexuality. I think it's probably more. And it can just be part of identity experimentation. I get clients all the time that they'll come in and say, I think I'm a lesbian. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's talk about that. They'll come back 3 years later and I'm like, I don't think I'm a lesbian. I'm like, cool. What's going on? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what's going on with you. And I do tell them it's normal for them to question, and it's totally fine. Um, they can self-identify at some age, but if they're trying to self-identify as gay when they're like 11 or 12, is there something else going on? Because they sometimes have not had any sexual experiences by that point, and they haven't had a relationship. And so sometimes you have to figure out, are they um, saying this because of media and stuff like that, or is it really true? And it's okay, just follow your client, just follow what's going on with them, and support them if this is what's going on because they have more mental health and substance abuse issues. All right, adolescents do love to hang out with their friends, as you all remember, um, with their siblings who are just by themselves. It can be really positive, but if there's too little structure, they could get into trouble. So while it's good to give them some freedom, you've got all the kids over hanging out in the bonus room or whatever. It's important to check on them. There was a good story about maybe the author where the mom flicked the lights at a party and said the party was over. It was a girl boy party at 10 p.m. and he was so embarrassed. But he understands now why they did that. If they had let the party go until 1 a.m. and not checked on them, there could have been a lot of things going on at the author's house. I think it was the author of this text, but it was one of the vignettes in our text. But working, it can be really good for kids to work, but it has to be the cost benefit analysis has to be really weighed because if a client is not really strong in school and you put a job on them and it impedes their extracurriculars, etc., it could be very problematic for them, and you don't want that. So you have to really weigh that in the hours they work, etc. Career development, there are stages of vocational choice. You're probably talking about this in career development. We have these stages, career development by Kale and Kavanaugh, 2010. According to Super's theory, which you learn about in career, but you've got this crystallization, which is 13, 14. They develop ideas based on their interest, specification around 18, begin to limit options by learning about specific jobs, beginning skill development, and going into college and like trying things out and taking classes and deciding what they want to do, and then entering the workforce is the implementation. Vocational choices are influenced by SES, by our gender, cultural context, people in our lives who talk to us and give us opportunities. Helen wants to be a dolphin trainer, so we've allowed her to do all sorts of things related to dolphins when we have the chance. Even though I know that's probably not what will end up happening. We talked about what you need to do to be that, like a marine biologist, but not all parents do that, right? And so, or maybe your first generation college and nobody needs to even talk to you about that, right? So all of those things are important in career development. Are they nurturing and listening and talking and helping them understand what it means to have to do something like that? It's important to help students who do not go to college not feel inferior. There are so many options available. A lot more people are in a tech school now. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but because they can get a good job that pays well, like welding and stuff. You get out, you get a good job, and as we well know, with things in recent years, it's been difficult. Luckily for you guys, job security you will have because we are slammed. I cannot even tell you. I don't think there's no end in sight for mental health will probably become just like going to the doctor, I would think in the next 10 years. So you're good to go. Planning's important for college. You got it. That's what I talked about. I had Helen do a book report on biology and look up what she would have to take and things she would have to know. And she's 9. So, just getting her to think about, hey, it looks fun to be a dolphin trainer, but this is what you have to do. And we've nurtured that. And it's fine. I mean, I want my children to do what they want to do, but you have to help them plan and understand. It's overwhelming, that whole process of getting into college, right? Transitions after high school, so much anxiety. Do you guys remember moving away or going off to school, getting new ones? It's crazy, right? It's a really hard time. A lot of people don't do well. Those numbers are pretty rough. We'll get to that for the beginning college student. And sure, go ahead. Sorry, I was answering a question. Um, all these factors are very difficult in this life transition. Here's some questions for self-reflection, but I've already given you your form response. So think about your own identity development. How did you decide who you were going to be? What age do you think you reached identity achievement stage? Think about dating. Think about career path. What's influenced you? Just think about it. It might help solidify the stage of development in your own head for when you test. Hope you enjoyed lecture 2, part 2, chapter 12. And your form response question was earlier in the lecture. Please post that in the form response sometime next week. I'm not going to be around next week, so you have to get with Dr. Muller or Dr. Powers if you need something. I'm going to be off email and everything, taking a break, a hiatus. So that'll be healthy for you guys when I get back. All right, signing out.